gift that comes from Arrow works for. I want to make which stay to community opportunity way LGBT to meet what's coming up. Last couple still need help. Certainly, I'm going to advance. Wonderful happenings coming up in July with some great. If you haven't been, if you're sure that your name is on there, and with that, it's also on the back of our welcome packet. We're glad we'll know it's part of the news. We know who you are and can welcome you following the service. And we invite you downstairs to Coffee and Connection, which is just a wonderful time where we all get together and socialize. Foundational song.
But it dwells where nature is where.
I love this. So glad to settle.
Place. We're entering into your own heart, open to the love that is here. Wherever we and each and every day.
In this moment, in this place, there is my daughter. You can't see a light of hope. She's brave and free. It's your voice, your stage, tell the truth about change and unity too. If we stand for peace, we have won. Sing me songs with freedom's drum. We are just heartbeats of a time. Sing it out like a child. We are one, no two the same. Living life, a precious flame. We are just heartbeats of a time. Sing it out like a child. We are one, no two the same. Free at last, sing it again. If you go within, are you proud? Do you stand for peace in the crowd? With an open heart, do you see equal people, brave and free? There's a place where only you go in the days where fear takes its toll. There's a child in you I can see. Your light of hope will set you free. We are just heartbeats of a time. Sing it out like a child. We are one, no two the same. Living life, a precious flame. We are just heartbeats of a time. Sing it out like a child. We are one, no two the same. Free at last, sing it again. We are just heartbeats of a time. Sing it out like a child. We are one, no two the same. Living life, a precious flame. We are just heartbeats of a time. Sing it out like a child. We are one, no two the same. Free at last, sing it again. Free at last, sing it again.
Thank you so much. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, we won't waste any time. We'd like to introduce our guest speaker this morning, Reverend Evan Wilkins, our friend and cohort. Welcome back, Reverend Evan.
Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome.
So how is everybody this morning? Everybody have a good solstice? Well, I would like to thank whoever it was that turned up the dial on the heat a little bit. I was starting to think that maybe I'm originally from Texas, so I was used to the heat, but haven't lived there in so long, and then I moved back here from Wisconsin. So it's nice to have heat. So anyway, thank you, whoever that was. All right, now on to the unity stuff. So I wanted to ask, do we have anybody here that is a Shakespeare fan? Yes. All right, I'm glad to see we have a few. I figured we might have a few. And even if you didn't raise your hand, that's okay. Well, even if you aren't, you have likely heard his infamous "to be or not to be," right? A quote from young Hamlet, "to be or not to be." And for those of you who are Shakespeare fans, I think you're going to enjoy the talk because it's themed around that famous quote. And even if you don't like Shakespeare, hey, just kick back and enjoy, right? All right, but we're going to do something that I like to call unitizing. You find something out there in the world, you're like, I can unitize that. We put the unity spin on it. So today we're going to unitize that quote a little bit. All right, y'all with me? All right. But in fact, I feel since I'm basing today's talk on that quote that I should really share the whole thing because it's really kind of applicable today. So to be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing in them, to die, sleep no more, and by sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks, that flesh is heir to, 'tis a consummation, devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come. So to me, that is a very powerful piece of work, is it not? Maybe I feel that way because I can unitize it. But there's a lot of unity teachings that can be gleaned from that entire piece of Shakespeare's work from within Hamlet. And I want to take some of this today and apply it to a decision that we must make on a daily basis, really moment by moment. What happens when we make that decision to be or not to be? So I have several favorite spiritual authors and teachers, and one of my favorites happens to be Dan Millman. And occasionally one of his books, I've got his whole book collection on my shelves at home, and I did say shelves because we've got way too many books. But sometimes I'll pass by the bookshelf, and of course one of his books will grab my attention, so I'll usually grab it and pick it up. And the most recent I was glancing through was his book, Wisdom of the Peaceful Warrior. And in it, he mentions to be or not to be. And he mentions how at one point in his life, he got to the point where he was contemplating suicide. And he says, in this state of psychological paralysis and suffering, I was forced to confront questions about meaning, life, and death. As I stood on this inner precipice, I came face to face with the core of my life, my identity, and my existence. Now, I don't think we must be on the brink of something such as suicide to really come to that place in our lives. That place where we approach and stand on that inner precipice. I believe it happens at so many different times throughout our lives. Those times when we may feel conflict. Those times when we may feel confused, isolated, perhaps even wondering to ourselves, what is the next step I need to take or that I even want to take in my life? We've likely all at one point or the other heard the question of what is the meaning of life? Now, I can't tell you that today because I'd probably be very wealthy and on a yacht somewhere, but we can talk about it. But this is where that question is really driven home. Mr. Millman goes on to say, he says, you are a story in the making, and no one can predict what the next chapter, the next day, or the next moment will bring. So maybe we can't always predict, but we can decide how the next chapter is going to go. So does anybody know of any ways we can do this? Well, one of the ways I know is by utilizing our principles and our tools here at Unity, and those that we learn even in other spiritual teachings. You know, one of those is really big here at Unity. It's our third Unity principle. Does anybody know what that is? See, I knew nobody was going to raise their hand on that because you're afraid I might call on you. This is like, yeah. I see Beth over there shaking her head. But it's centered around co-creating with God. And if you look at unity.com, you'll see the third principle listed as, we are co-creators with God, creating reality through thoughts held in mind. And I always like to use Unity Reverend Ellen Davenport's description in her book, The 5 Principles, because she explains it really well to me. She says, human beings create our experiences by the activity of our thinking. Everything in the manifest realm has its beginning in thought. And that includes to be or not to be. And today I'd also like to add to be or not to be God. To be or not to be the universe, to be or not to be the source, whatever name you use for it. Or perhaps, depending on how you look at it, a co-creator with that source. So for me, I visualize. I'm a very visually driven person. And I like to visualize this giant whiteboard or chalkboard, whichever you prefer. And I think about the beginning of the school year. You know, those of you who are teachers or were teachers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, that thing is fresh at the beginning of the year, right? You walk in, it's been cleaned, and it's just a blank slate ready to go. It's ready to be filled with whatever you choose to fill it with. And those things that you fill it with, where do they start? They start in here, right? Whatever it is that's in your head sets everything into motion, until eventually your hand begins to bring it into the manifest realm on that chalkboard. Now envision life as one giant chalkboard, or even a canvas. You know, maybe you're an artist that likes to paint, and you think about a canvas. It's waiting to be filled. Its purpose there is to be filled. It wants to be filled. But you first bring into your thoughts whatever it is you want to fill that canvas or that chalkboard with. And the beauty is that you can fill that blank slate with whatever it is that you want to fill it with. Now, occasionally, something may make its way there. Something we may not want to see may appear there on the chalkboard or on the canvas. You know, sometimes we may walk up to that canvas or that chalkboard and we may feel a bit grumpy, right? We may feel a bit angry or irritated, feeling that maybe a little bit of confusion has set into our lives. You know, we may walk up to it and feel that a little bit of love may be missing somewhere. Or maybe we just kind of feel a little put out with life in that moment. Does anybody else ever do that, or is it just me? Okay. All right. I'm happy to find that I'm in good company. But as a result of those things that I am experiencing at that time, I may look at that canvas or that chalkboard and realize that I've written or painted something that goes along with whatever that experience is that I am feeling in that moment. You know, something that I might be able to replace, and to replace with something a bit more of what I'd like to see. But before I erase those things that I don't want to see, what if I chose to maybe look at them from a different perspective? You know, maybe my experience brought those things forward because it was something that I needed to see. You know, maybe that crooked line that I drew on that canvas, you know, maybe I could add just a few more to it, making that line appear not so crooked after all, or even allowing me to see the beauty in that crooked line. Maybe that equation on the chalkboard that I unsuccessfully tried to solve. Maybe it was unsuccessful because it was through that unsuccessful attempt that I learned to do it better the next time. And maybe sometimes it just is what it is. Maybe sometimes I drew something from what I perceived as negative because I just needed to get it out. Plain and simple. No more, no less. To be or not to be. Only I can create my experiences of what it is to be or not to be. Maybe to be or not to be results in a new way of living. Lots of times we've practiced it the old way, right? We're familiar with the old way. We've practiced the old way until we're blue in the face and we're tired of it. We know it's time for something new, and we know that we want something new. Otherwise, we wouldn't be studying ways to do things differently, right? We might not be sitting here today. We wouldn't really have the need to study spiritual principles because why would we necessarily need to? If things are going exactly the way we want them to every moment of every day. So Dan Millman says in his book, he says, you don't have to do anything except to stop seeing the world from the viewpoint of your own personal cravings. Loosen up, he says. When you lose your mind, you'll come to your senses. Now, if you're like me, you might be replaying that quote in your head and think, well, hey, Evan, that sounds all good and well here. But hold on a minute, lose my mind? That doesn't sound so good after all. Or does it? I'm not sure how many of you have read Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman, but in his books, he talks about a teacher that he had. He was a spiritual teacher that he nicknamed Socrates. Now, it's not the famous Socrates that we've heard about in school, but it's just a guy that appears as a regular guy by the name of Socrates. But Millman lets us know in the book that when Socrates told him to lose his mind, he wasn't talking about becoming irrational. He was, as Mr. Millman states, talking about, on the contrary, to pay attention to the reality around me rather than merely thinking about it. But what does that mean? To me, it means a shift in perception. And to ask myself, what is it that I am paying attention to? What do I put in my mind each and every day? What do I put in my mind each and every moment? And I think that lots of times we walk around with this veil that covers our faces. And when we do, we view life through that veil. Sometimes we wear a veil that skews our sight a little bit, right? It makes us see things as they really may not be. Maybe you're wearing a red veil over your face and it makes everything appear as red. You may even look up at the sky and it appears red to you. But does that really make the sky red? What if we were to agree to lose that part of our mind that tells us that A, we must wear the veil in the first place, and B, that part of our mind that makes us feel as if we need to even wear that veil in the first place? Wouldn't you rather just take it off and see the colors as they really are? To see life as it really is. And maybe even take that veil off to feel the breeze on your face or to feel the sun on your face. So I want to share a quote I found, and unfortunately I'm not sure who said it, so I can't give credit. But it says, once you have started seeing the beauty of life, ugliness starts disappearing. If you start looking at life with joy, sadness starts disappearing. You cannot have heaven and hell together. You can only have one. It is your choice. And what you choose to see really is up to you. Day by day, moment by moment, we make the decision to be or not to be. So I want to ask you to take with you today that question, to be or not to be. Think about it, what it is that you want to be. What is it that immediately comes to your mind? How does the thought of being what you want to be make you feel? How does it look? So I want for you to take this with you, and any time you think of what it is that you don't want to be, anytime that thought enters your mind, I want for you to use this as your anchor. I invite you to use this as your anchor, to be or not to be, because that choice is always yours. Namaste.
Thank you. Wonderful, inspiring words to take us into the week. Yes? Yes. All right. Well, here at Unity Spiritual Center of Portland, we're supported by your generous giving. Enables us to offer you all of these wonderful opportunities for growth and learning. And so we express that gratitude through our giving. And so now's the time to do that. In the backs of the chairs, you'll find these blue cards, and there's 3 ways that you can give to Unity Spiritual Center. One is online on our website, unityofportland.org. You can click on the donate button. The easiest way is through texting on your smartphone. That makes it easier for everybody. You can text Unity of Portland to 833-814-3477, or you can send a check. We still take checks and cash. The love offering baskets will come around here shortly. But as you take your gift in your hand and hold your gift, we are going to say our blessing together in just one moment when it comes up on the screen. I know I jumped the gun on you a little bit, didn't I, Leah? And this is usually when I cue my Sunday service coordinator to go down and bring the children up. So I'm playing both ends today. Thanks, Mike. So as we hold our gifts in our hands this morning, let's say our blessing together. Divine love as me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky,
And it is a wonderful world, and we're reminded of this every week as our young people join us. We're going to sing those young people in right now. Michael,
Yes,
take
let's
it
do it.
away. Let's
You
do it.
are the star of the morning. You are heaven smiling at us. You're God's gift of tomorrow. And how we love you. Yes, how we love you. You are the star of the morning. You are heaven smiling at us. You're God's gift of tomorrow. And how we love you. Yes, how we love you.
All right. I wanted to do this last week, but I saved it for this week. I want to give a shout out to our YOUs, and we've only got a couple here today. I'm so sad about that, but you can let them know. We had just wonderful feedback about the car wash, right? It was so great. But I had to say this out loud. An email I got said, "My car is immaculately clean. What's more impressive is witnessing how very hard those teenagers work to make it shine. It gives me lots of optimism and great hope for a better future ahead." So yeah, it was noticed. So thank you very much. And I want to mention one of the people who helped them a lot, Bill Emig. Come on up here real quick. Bill maintains, with the help of a small crew, a mighty small crew, our grounds, our gardens. Yes, he jumped in and helped set up the young people for their car wash. And I found out yesterday was his birthday. Yeah, so Bill, well, not yet. We have more than one.
Oh.
For Bill, I know I do, I know. Well, I just found out one last night after I bought the flowers. Gina, next year you're on the list. Gina's birthday was yesterday also. And then our beloved Barbara, her birthday is tomorrow. So please join me in singing Happy Birthday.
Happy
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear
Happy birthday to you.
And there is cake downstairs, birthday cake. Come get some birthday cake and celebrate. You're welcome. All right, you're so welcome. All right, stand and join me in singing the peace song this morning.
Here we go. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Great, and join me in our unity prayer. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Have a beautiful week. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for this day.